Operation Columbia. CHQ had suggested the possibility of such a motorcade, and the Los Angeles Gray Fleet Control staff had asked for a more definite assignment. Perhaps this is the letter we've been waiting for. Yes, this is it. This gives us the go-ahead. So a staff meeting was called. Now we could really start formulating the plans for a Technocracy Gray Fleet demonstration such as the West Coast had never seen before.
It is suggested that we travel U.S. Highway 99 from Los Angeles to Vancouver. On the way back, we could travel Coast Highway 101, making lecture stops at all major cities en route.
Hundreds of copies of operational instructions had to be mimeographed and mailed out to all sections and members throughout all the western states and western Canada. Members of the TechNet began to pass the word along over the air lanes.
Hello, CQ, the TechNet. Hello, CQ, the TechNet. W6SFL is calling CQ, the Technocracy Amateur Net, and standing by for W6WAY Venice.
W6WAY checking in with traffic for Ralph Clark concerning Vancouver reservations. Over.
Roger, Paul. W6QFL, San Pedro. W6SFL on the TechNet is calling and standing by.
W6QFL checking in with traffic for W6VVS on condition of mobile transmitters for Operation Columbia.
Roger, Forrest. W6VVS Englewood. W6SFL on the TechNet is calling and standing by.
There was a new emphasis on the painting of official gray cars. Several members bought new or newer cars and dressed them in gray. Others got new coats of gray over the old, or new decals where the old ones were chipped or faded. Repairs were made and body work done so that all the cars would be in first-class condition for the long trek. The Los Angeles Tour headquarters staff went shopping for an old bus, for they too had an idea. They envisioned a huge mobile organization unit, and starting with this simple sketch, combined with lots of sweating man-hours and the available technical skill, the MOU was beginning to take shape. Over in the sound installation shop, the huge AC amplifiers for the MOU public address system are being prepared, while other members are having PA systems installed in their own cars to further expand Technocracy's sound fleet, already the largest in the world. And some are putting in converters for shortwave radio reception so they can pick up our mobile TechNet stations. Letters by the dozens pour in each day, requesting more detailed information or inquiring about reservations. Reservations for hotel and motel accommodations were arranged in advance. One of our members in the advertising business owned this searchlight unit, which he frequently used to attract attention to Technocracy functions. Why not take it along? Members of the Gray Fleet control staff picked out a faster means of transportation, and in less than 4 days, the Big Eye was ready to roll, thanks to the several members who personally financed this project. And here again, 3 days away from the date of departure, the MOU looks like it's ready to roll. But there's plenty of work still to be done. No reservation worries here, for it has the accommodations for 4 when it's time to retire. And speaking of retiring, here's one technocrat who says he isn't taking any chances when fleet rates on tires, tubes, and accessories are available to all members of the Gray Fleet. And now for that last-minute polish job, for we all take pride in the organization we represent. At last, we were on our way. In the wee small hours of the morning, June 26, 1947, Technocracy's Gray Fleet was rolling out of Los Angeles. There was no parade formation, just 5 or 6 cars here and there, but all headed out north for Highway 99. Up, over the ridge route, through fertile farmlands of the Kern Valley, 388 miles that first day into Sacramento, where we were directed to the section headquarters by these monad directional markers. And that evening, thousands of motorists attracted by the 8 million candle power beam of the Big Eye drove by the auditorium to find what it was all about. And thousands of these press releases and contact folders were distributed in the streets, while inside, authorized speaker Alberta Carnahan addressed an enthusiastic audience. Early next morning, we were on our way on the next lap of our trip. Up through the beautiful Sacramento Valley, past Mount Shasta in her majestic beauty, 322 miles through Medford, Oregon, and into Grants Pass, where authorized speaker Ailsa Deal was speaking to a packed house, while just 30 miles back, Rio McCaslin was addressing a group in Medford. And again, the Big I was attracting hundreds of curious citizens who were invited to go through the big Mobile organization unit, where they were given a brief introduction to technocracy and supplied with contact folders. And still more thousands of free literature items were handed to motorists who filed past in a continuous stream for over 2 hours. Leaving Grants Pass through Roseburg, we were on our way early next morning toward Portland. It was on our way to Portland that we first began to see these Operation Columbia signs, which were posted regularly from here on into Seattle. Here, too, we began to see more and more monad markers such as these along the highway as we rolled on toward the Portland section headquarters, where members registered for billeting and mass feeding at the Swan Island Navy Barracks, prior to hearing a stirring message from Rio McCaslin in the Masonic Temple, while outside the Big I was again scanning the skies. And moving electric signs at the door and in the MOU were attracting the curious throngs for another record literature distribution. Sunday morning, we formed our first fully organized motorcade lineup for our departure from Portland. Escorted by the Washington State Highway Patrol, we crossed the Columbia River and on into Washington. These members of the Pacific Northwest had really done a terrific job on symbolization. Monad markers lined the highway, with one nearly every mile of the way, clear to the Canadian border. And interspersed were still more of these Operation Columbia signs. Entering Olympia, we stopped for refueling operations at service stations designated by this sign. While overhead, an official Technocracy gray plane, equipped with a public address system, was announcing the arrival of Technocracy's gray fleet. Leaving Olympia, our mobile shortwave radio units were already in contact with other units in Tacoma, where we were scheduled to arrive within a few minutes to meet the Seattle group. And still more monad markers dot the highway as we near the rendezvous point. At last, we arrived. And greeted by these neat rows of car-top signs on the Seattle cars, we were directed to pre-arranged parking areas by courteous parking attendants. Tacoma Motorcycle Police were already on hand, along with the Washington State Highway Patrol, to escort us through the city of Tacoma. All drivers were registered, and city maps and instructions for meals and lodgings in Seattle were issued at this point. Mobile shortwave radio units, the Mobile Organization Unit, the big I, and Mobile AC power sound units were lined up in one column. Mobile painting and repair units were lined up to the left. And still more cars were arriving at the rendezvous point. Here's one from Rexburg, Idaho. And he started with the group in Los Angeles. Up high goes one of our photographers to get a bird's eye view of things. Now the gray fleet is getting lined up for the parade through Tacoma and into Seattle. Dozens of units with car top signs are out of sight down behind this building. Mobilization for departure is hastily directed as the movie camera grinds away. All set? Let's go! Out of the parking lot in 4 contingents, each contingent escorted through Tacoma by 14 motorcycle police. On, out of the city limits of Tacoma, past more monad highway markers. Towards Seattle, where we were again split into 4 different contingents and escorted into the city by 28 motorcycle police over 4 different routes. Seattle Section Headquarters with humming with preparations for Howard Scott's lecture is already beginning to arrive at the huge civic auditorium where a large receptive audience turned out to hear Howard Scott as he warned of an impending crisis in America's domestic and foreign affairs. On our way again, past still more of these billboards. And talk about highway markers. These members of RD 12247 have really given us a mark to shoot at. Northward out of Seattle, they line the highways on either side as we roll on towards Bellingham. Traveling directly behind this big mobile organization unit, we get a new thrill of pride as we pass each highway marker and Technocracy billboard along the way. In Bellingham, we halt briefly for a remobilization before crossing the Canadian border. And many of the members have their first opportunity to become acquainted with Mr. Atwater of the CHQ staff. And with our Director-in-Chief, who is saying a few words of appreciation to the members for having devoted so much of their time, effort, and money to this tremendous, never-to-be-forgotten symbolization impact. That mobile shortwave radio unit up ahead and our motion picture unit, also equipped with a converter for shortwave reception, were 2 of the advance cars sent ahead from Bellingham through Blaine, Washington, to the Canadian border, on past the United States Customs and the Peace Arch, to the Canadian side, where an extra crew was waiting for this momentous occasion. Here they come. Led by the Washington State Highway Patrol, a radio unit and motorcycle escort, The first contingent, including the Big Eye, and nearly 100 sound cars arrive at the first inspection point. We all recognize this tall, familiar figure as he spots the cameraman up on the roof. Yes, we were a very proud and elated bunch of technocrats over this long line of gray cars, now extending nearly 10 miles back from the border. This was the first time in history that an international boundary had been crossed by any social movement in a mass demonstration such as this. Pleased? Well, why not? This was a big day for everyone concerned, as the cars were now coming through 4 abreast. Border inspections required only a minute or 2. The MOU, now rolling past the first inspection point, indicates that approximately half the cars have already passed through, and as many again have yet to come. The 2 shortwave transmitters on the MOU, as well as all the other mobile radio transmitters, were sealed at this point and could not be used for the duration of our visit in Canada. A Canadian motorcycle police escort was waiting on the other side of the customs building to provide our escort on into Vancouver. The Canadian customs inspectors were very efficient, extremely courteous, and very much impressed by the esprit de corps and appearance of this organization. Or maybe, in some cases, it was the individual member who seemed to make the impression, as did this very attractive young lady from the Hollywood section. And still they come. House trailers in gray and more cars. We've been here nearly 2 hours, but there are still a few more dozen to be checked through. At last, we can now see the end of the line. And the crew gets hastily aboard for the departure of the MOU. We proceeded on down the highway to a remobilization point about 3 miles beyond the border, where Vancouver members supplied city maps, attached bumper strips, washed our windshields, and wiped off every car. This magnificent gesture on the part of our Canadian hosts brought a lump to the throats of many of the technocrats who had made this long trip. It seemed like a welcome from old friends, as in some cases it was. And we could see many members from both north and south of the border shedding tears of joy and pride as our motion picture unit rolled past this seemingly endless line of shining Technocracy gray cars. Falling in behind the front contingent of the gray fleet, which had already begun to move, we rolled on toward Vancouver, over this leisurely winding highway, past more billboards and monad markers, through New Westminster, and on in to the huge Vancouver section headquarters, where over 300 visiting members were served a late luncheon in the section dining room, and thousands registered in the guest books and were directed to their hotels and motels and nearby cafes. The largest and most successful technocratic social event of the year was this dance following that evening's banquet in New Westminster. The atmosphere was alive with the air of congeniality and romance. Romance, did we say? And why not, with a bevy of young lovelies such as these from Victoria, Kimberley, and Trail, B.C., from Seattle, and from Portland, and, why go any further? But there were a lot of others, too, from all up and down the Pacific coast. Major events of the following day included this huge Vancouver Dominion Day Parade and a membership meeting that same evening. Again, with both police and Technocracy Motorcycle Corps escort, we rolled down through this park-like residential section. Each Gray Fleet unit was bedecked with both Canadian and United States flags. What an impressive sight to see long lines like these of official Technocracy gray cars. And as the cars roll past this point, the motion picture unit records this historic event for technocrats throughout the entire continent. The line extends clear out of sight beyond that hill in the background. Back there somewhere is the Big Eye, while at the intersection off to the right of the camera, the other half of this parade is waiting to fall in behind the last car in this first contingent. On July 2nd, our final day in Vancouver, all efforts were concentrated on publicity and sale of tickets to the Howard Scott Lecture, scheduled for 8 p.m. at the Forum, which seats over 5,000. Here a capacity audience reacted to Mr. Scott's factual analysis of the current trends with spontaneous and vigorous applause. Back in Seattle on the evening of July 3rd, our schedule here called for another dance at the section headquarters. And for July 4th in Everett, a Gray Fleet review by our Director-in-Chief. This review, followed by that evening's membership meeting, concluded Operation Columbia. Yes, Technocracy is on the move, not just on the Pacific coast, but all over this entire continent, and symbolization is doing the job. In the air, Technocracy gray planes such as this are doing their job of symbolization, and each month brings reports of more of these planes in official gray. On the ground, portions of the Gray Fleet like this are mobilizing all over North America for mass demonstrations to arouse curiosity and to make the American public Technocracy conscious. The official gray cars and their planned activities are writing a powerful imprint across the face of America's future. If you are driving a non-official car, let's give it a new coat of Technocracy gray. Or if you ride a motorcycle, let's make it a part of Technocracy's official motorcycle corps. And perhaps a little later equip it, like this one, with two-way shortwave radio to expedite more efficient Gray Fleet movements. From dawn till dusk, they are working for Technocracy. Let's roll in the Technate on the wheels of an official gray car. Salute and happy landings.